Now, that entity, this idea of the government, is a parasite. It feeds itself. It is not there at this point, at this junction, at this point in history. It's only feeding its insatiable appetite to gain more, to become more powerful, to grow bigger, and gain more control in the world. That is what's happening. So we do realize at this point, I know it's hard to understand for many people, but I think we're beyond the point of thinking, well, if we just voted the right people, it's not the people, it's the system. And once you enter the system, you become compromised. That is the inherent trait of the system. Once you are in the system, you are compromised. That is what's happened to me and you throughout our entire lives. That is the matrix. So this will be my most controversial video up to this point. Depending on who watches this, might hurt some feelings out there. At this point, we do realize we're not voting our way out of this, right? We realize we're past that point in this junction of the empire, right? We know that, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of us have faith in humanity. I have significant faith in humanity. Humanity, humans, us, me and you. I have extreme faith in humanity because I have extreme faith in myself, because I have put myself through very challenging times in my life, and I always get through it, and I change, and I grow, and I evolve, which means I know every single other person out there can do exactly the same. There's nothing I have that nobody else has. And not to say that I'm some great, wonderful person here. All I know is the inner work that I've done to expand and grow within myself. And I know every single other person can do exactly the same. Now, do I think am I going to wait around and hope that our politicians and our government do that? No. That entity, this idea, it's not even a real thing. This idea of the government is a parasite. It feeds itself. It is not there at this point, at this junction, at this point in history. It's only feeding its insatiable appetite to gain more, to become more powerful, to grow bigger, and gain more control in the world. That is what's happening. So we do realize at this point, I know it's hard to understand for many people, but I think we're beyond the point of thinking, well, if we just voted the right people. No, it's not the people, it's the system. And once you enter the system, you become compromised. That is the inherent trait of the system. Once you are in the system, you are compromised. That is what's happened to me and you throughout our entire lives. That is the matrix. Now we can speculate who created the matrix, our society the way they did, whether they're reptilians or humans or Satan himself, but that's not the case. Obviously it was people, but it becomes something separate from the people. Because I thought when I was fucking growing up, it was the government of the people, by the people, for the people. So help me God. But it is now a completely its own entity on its own, feeding itself. And the programs and the ways in which the system works, when you enter it, you become compromised. You have to cater yourself to the system. The system does not cater itself to you. This is the matrix we've all grown up in. I'm not even talking about just the government, talking about all systems. They all become something separate from human beings. That's why I say society is anti-human, anti-trust, and anti-God. Because these systems that have been built over the last couple hundred years become something completely separate from the people. And the people that work within these systems work to feed the system instead of the better good for themselves or humanity in general. You can see it. All these systems become separate from humanity. And then we're feeding our own parasitic creations. Even if we don't agree with it, we're still like feeding it and basing our decisions off of it and basing our fears off of it and our insecurity on a daily basis off of these systems that are completely outside of us, completely now separate of us. And we just continue to perpetually feed these systems and cycles. Is that not insane? Is that not the definition of insanity? Is that not delusional? Is the society we live in now, the Matrix, not delusional? I don't think anyone can argue that. You know it is. You know at this point it is. So I have the utmost faith in humanity. That is why I'm making these fucking videos. Is because I have faith in humanity. I do not have faith in these anti-human, anti-God, anti-trust, anti-intuition systems that the Matrix has built over so many years. Do not have faith in that. Those do not serve us. They're not serving us anymore. That is why I'm here. That is why I'm doing that. Making these videos. But what am I really getting at? Well, watch the rest of my videos. Obviously, I'm not talking about revolution. Like, who the fuck are we gonna fight? Our neighbors? Let's have civil war. Who are you actually gonna fight in a civil war? Your fucking liberal neighbor? Or your conservative brother-in-law? Like, who are you actually gonna go after in a civil war? Conquer and divide. Politics is so divisive to keep the masses in conflict with each other instead of looking outward, well, actually inward, but also identifying outwardly that, oh, my neighbor's not the fucking problem. That blue-haired liberal over there isn't the fucking problem. The gun-toting conservative over there isn't the problem. Because we all basically fundamentally believe in the same shit. And I think a lot of the arguments that we have could very easily get worked out if it wasn't for propaganda, if it wasn't for stories being rammed down your throat and fucking bullshit narratives being crammed in your ear nonstop every single fucking day. We believe these stories, so we take positions on these ideologies, whatever our political party believes in, whether or not it makes any sense. We just go with what the authority says. We go with what the narrative of our favorite authority figure says, instead of going within ourselves and understanding you are the authority of your fucking self and nobody else is, and you do not need to look to anybody. Now, there's an argument for this as a child, but as an adult, the people who are of voting age and have careers and have responsibilities and obligations and bills to pay, you don't need to look to fucking anybody to tell you how this world works, to tell you what is right or wrong, to tell you what is true in science or not true within yourself and spirit. Like, are we fucking serious? Do we seriously need to look to a president or a politician at this point in humanity to tell us how the world actually works? I think we're beyond that. I think we're beyond these systems. I think we're beyond all the fucking bullshit. That is why I'm up here saying this shit. Potentially putting a target on my back, putting myself on some government list or whatever the fuck. People need to know the truth, and the truth is found within. Once you understand yourself, then you understand other people. Then you understand the mechanics of society and how this matrix actually works. You actually become a whole lot smarter. You actually become way better at the endeavors within the matrix. Once you learn who you are, everything material in the world becomes a lot more understandable. You learn a lot easier. That's what's so fascinating about going within yourself. And another reason why they try to keep you from going within yourself, because if you go within yourself, you become far more intelligent and self-aware and aware of the universe and the world than what you are told by these false leaders, these false prophets, and these false narratives that they constantly feed down your throat to keep you distracted and keep you arguing and conflicting with your neighbor. I mean, literally, people have been talking about this for thousands of years. Everything Jesus Christ said is literally relevant today. Everything Lao Tzu said is literally relevant today. Everything Buddha was talking about. Name any prophet, any spiritual prophet throughout history, thousands of years ago. They're literally talking about this shit. It is perfectly relevant. But what has happened is a lot of this knowledge is so symbolic, people don't know how to interpret it or understand it. But fundamentally, and this is what I'm getting at, our society is not much different now than it was, let's say, during the Roman Empire. Give the people entertainment, keep them fat and giggly, keep them distracted, while we go play by our own rules. What do you think is happening now? It's the same world, and we just keep perpetually going in this cycle. That's insane. Now, I do think, obviously, energetically, spiritually, consciously, something is happening within humanity. Normal, everyday people are starting to wake up and starting to become aware of this nonsense. And it is no coincidence. It has nothing to do with the internet or how much information is available to you. This is a collective rising. People are feeling it within themselves because it is coming from something greater than themselves, something greater than in this world. But we can't just sit around and identify all of the corruption and delusional nonsense in the world and just be like, well, I told you so. Because that's what I did. I thought I was awake. For years, I thought I was awake. I could see all the corruption. I could see all this nonsense and bullshit going on. I could see how dirty and parasitic the system was. But I did nothing about it. But I started doing things about it, but I wasn't doing anything within myself about it. I was still living in fear, insecurity, lack, and doubt. I did not look at those emotions. I just continued to bury them. And any spiritual stuff or worldly macro and micro political economic shit that I was learning, I could spew it and repeat it and sound smart and of a high intellect to my friends, but ultimately I was still burying what actually needed to be looked at. So how do we change this world? Well, that's what I'm talking about. Honestly, you go within. Like I said, all the great prophets, this is what they're talking about. Going within yourself and taking a look at what is keeping you from being the greatest version of yourself. And if you can do that, then people around you realize they can do that, and then they can do that, and then see how it creates a ripple effect? It's a domino effect. That is why the consciousness of humanity is rising, because there are more and more people like me on the internet. People are becoming aware of it, even if they think it's fucking woo-woo. They are becoming more aware of it. They're starting to identify the corruption and all the nonsense going on, how these systems are not designed to help humanity. So yeah, it doesn't involve war, doesn't involve violence. It involves looking at your darkness, looking at your fear, and understanding yourself. And obviously none of this shit happens overnight by any means. Like I said, I've been on this, now that in hindsight, I've been on this journey my entire life, because I've always viewed the world from a different perspective than most people around my age group, and I was called a conspiracy theorist and blah blah blah. So what did I do? I lived the lie, which created fear, doubt, and anxiety, which created drinking problem, which created a kratom problem, which created decades of my life dedicated to trying to find any moment of peace within myself, and I couldn't. doing this is far more powerful than you think. The subconscious program that is drilled into everybody is that we can only conquer these systems through brute force, civil war, physical revolution, whatever it may be. That is what they teach you. That is why the world is the way it is, specifically. Because that's what the Matrix taught you. And how well has that worked out for us? Where are we now? What people have been teaching for thousands of fucking years. And it is all perfectly relevant for today. And that is why the Matrix takes over religion and misleads people. Because they'll feed you a lot of truth. They'll feed you a significant amount of truth, mostly truth. And then they'll weave in the lies that count and the lies that matter. And that is how they control you. Because you can go around thinking you know the truth, and which you do, a lot of it, you actually do know the truth, but some very strategically, structurally placed lies are embedded within that truth that lead people astray. That is the tactic of the Matrix. That is literally the tactic of all these psyops happening right now in society. Is you will find truth in all these conspiracy theories, but there will be embedded false narratives to lead you astray. Because, yeah, the CIA is probably coming up with most of the conspiracy theories on the internet right now. Everything is becoming a psyop. That is why it's so important to know who you are and to have self-awareness and have the ability, when you're learning and looking at all these things, to cross-reference. And then you start aligning with what truth actually is. Because you know yourself, you understand yourself, because you've been through it. I think this is extremely important now. And it's time we stop putting it aside. So, and I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but this is what I've felt my whole life. And I'm not going to go against that lie anymore. I have literally felt this my entire life. And by going against it is why I suffered so much in depression and anxiety and fear. Is because I went against what I knew to be true within myself. That is the point. So, I'm just trying to help. Anyways, love you guys. Love yourselves. Find the way to love yourselves. That's the point. When you love yourself, there ain't fucking shit anyone outside of you can tell you.